All right. Today is November 2nd. We're south of Jamestown, Ohio here at the Rosemore Farm. With us today joining us is a crew from BASF. So we wanted to come out here and walk some fields, look at some corn, and kind of look at the disease control that we had this year. And then we also want to look at the weed pressure. So we're really putting to the test the fungicide, weed control pressure. I know a lot of people like walking the fields and showing it during the season when it's its healthiest. Now that we're here at harvest, we're trying to collect the yellow gold. So this is the time that it's going to matter. You know, did we do our job as a farmer? Did we do our job as a product? So we're going to walk the fields here real quick and see what we have. Let's start with the good before we go to the bad. A lot of green leaves still, right?
Yes.
November 2nd. Plant health wise, I'd say it's pretty healthy plant still. We agree?
Yes, I agree.
All right. Now we're looking for lesions. Do we see any northern or gray, which is typical what we're going to fight here in Ohio?
Nope. Looking at it, I don't see anything really up top. Not seeing too much in the bottom, seeing a little bit of maybe some gray leaf spot, but not really seeing any northern, and even the gray leaf spot's very minimal.
And this was sprayed at R1. So we did the full 7 ounce of Veltima at R1. But you know, the always saying last year we only did 1 pass of fungicide on the corn and at tassel. And one thing that I noticed last year was we had tar spot come in really late. I was hoping that was a fluke. We did the same thing again this year, and we did not come in with a second pass of fungicide. So would you like to explain to the audience what we're looking at here? What we found.
So what we're looking at here is late season tar spot, but even though it's late season, you can see that there's quite a bit on this leaf. And you're looking for these little black spots. It essentially looks like somebody's flecked a bunch of tar on the leaf, but each one of these black dots are going to produce millions of spores that are going to release and go on to infect. So what's interesting about tar spot is it doesn't matter what stage your corn is in. We do tend to see it come in late, but it can affect all the tissue at any point in time. So that's what we're seeing come in all these little spots. And eventually it can overtake the entire leaf. And if you're in grain fill earlier in the season, you can tell where that's impactful, especially since this was the ear leaf. If this ear leaf goes away, you don't have a lot of things pumping into your corn ear there.
So even though this came in late, it was obviously before black layer.
Mm-hmm.
Can we agree on that?
Probably, yes.
Probably before black layer.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think there's a possibility I lost 5, 10, 15 bushels due to not being able to fill in test weight in a high management situation?
I think there is a risk that you could have had some yield impact with it even coming in late prior to black layer, because we do know how impactful it is, and it just drains the plant from all of its resources. So we can see sometimes in a high management situation, a 2-pass program being very effective. I think your first timing there at the R1 is a really good application timing. And if you start seeing the disease come in, you know, we want to think about having protection out there. When we see a lesion, we're too late, right? We can't get that green tissue back. So the longer we can have a fungicide out there and kind of layering them on top of each other, keeping protection on the leaf at all stages, you're going to have a better impact, especially, like I said, in that high yielding. You don't want disease out there at all. So we've seen a lot of positive benefits from, you know, the 2-pass R1, VT kind of in there, and even going as late as R4, we can tend to see some good positive yield impacts.
Now, if I wanted to, you know, keep ROI in mind and budget, if I wanted to use, let's say, Veltima and Headline Amp together, because I've done that a lot in the past on different passes, would you recommend Veltima first and then Headline Amp, or Headline Amp first and then Veltima?
So in that situation, I would definitely lead with Veltima because of its unique chemistry, its longevity. We know sometimes situationally that second pass might be a little delayed, or given environmental conditions, you might not even be able to get it out at all. So we definitely want our best product out there. Veltima is going to be that product. Now, coming back in that second pass, Headline Amp is also very effective against all of our key diseases, tar spot included. So following in that second application with Headline Amp is also very effective.
And that will give us another 21 days added protection on the end. And you can see here that might have saved
yes
a lot of these leaves. Yeah, which, you know, driving down the road, would you be able to even tell that anything was wrong with this corn. I mean, you still see the green leaves. You'd think this is healthy, happy corn. And then we take a look here, and when you get up on it, and yeah, you definitely see that we weren't able to capture every
Right.
bushel in this field.
No.
Now,
Definitely.
one of the questions that I get asked a lot and that I have is next year. So, okay, tar spot is in this field. We agree it's a 230 acre field.
Yep.
Okay, I have 800 other acres surrounding this field. Is this a problem that I'm done with? I just got to get through this year, and once I harvest it, get it on the ground, I won't have to deal with tar spot again?
What I do know is that tar spot can stay in the residue. So if you plan to do corn on corn, that's a higher risk because all this residue, this leaf's going to end up on the ground. All these spores are still going to be viable next year. We do know it can survive in the winter very nicely. So if you were to plant corn in this field again next year, it's very high risk. Even if you switch to soybeans, we do know that it can eventually get picked up in the wind and it can be moved very easily. So we do know that even surrounding areas can be a little higher risk. And this is your field, but you don't know what's going on in your neighbor's field. How's their management? So depending on where it's at, where it's going, I mean, it's in the area, it's going to be in the area from here
So
on
it's
out.
more living within the soil, and then once the spores become active due to our weather environment, that's when the spores can move from field to field, correct?
Yes. Yep. So it's
So
going to
for-
be in the residue. Not sure so much about soil viability, but we do know that it stays in the leaf tissues, the stalks. We know it can get on the ear husks and everything. So we do know that it is going to be in the field and it's going to stay.
Has there been any research or studies done or going on about would I be better with chisel plowing this, completely trying to get the residue buried underground, or if I'm in a no-till situation, do I leave myself more open to tar spot or having tar spot move?
Right. At this time, I'm not overly aware of any information or any research that's being conducted specifically. I know that tar spot is a high priority for a lot of the universities in the Midwest, especially in the I states where they've been dealing with it very severely year over year. I haven't seen any data come out yet to really say yes or no that burying the residue is going to be beneficial or not. Unfortunately, I don't know.
No,
I don't
that's
know that
fine.
answer, Cory.
No, you're good.
But no, I think in a lot of ways, my mindset with tar spot is similar to on the weed spectrum, water hemp, you know, kind of relatively new to Ohio. Alice talked about the millions of spores that can be produced right here. And you think about, you know, the really small weed seed with water hemp. Maybe burying them isn't going to be the answer. Like Alice just mentioned, we don't have a lot of data back on that yet. But like she said, it is a really a topic that's top of mind. And I think going into winter meetings last year, I think is when it became top of mind for us here in Ohio. It's something that we don't want to fall behind on, similar to water hemp. You know, I grew up in Iowa, and I remember, you know, as that progressed, and now moving out here to Ohio the last 5 years, kind of see, you know, as it gets to be more and more present, I think that tar spot, we got to kind of keep it in mind the same way as we do water hemp on the weed side.
No, it's always there. If the plant is unhealthy to begin with, tar spot has a double whammy effect almost. So it doesn't need other diseases to come in and to infect, but I always kind of equate it to, let's say you have the flu, then you catch a stomach virus. You know, how can you fight the flu if you're fighting a stomach virus? It's kind of the same thing. You know, if the plant's already unhealthy and then you get tar spot, and then we still have all the other diseases as well. So we have, you know, gray leaf spot, we have northern corn leaf blight, things like that come in, it's going to take the plant down even faster. So starting with a good healthy plant, you know, like I was saying, prior to that V10, the plants are younger, generally more healthy, can fight off a lot of infection. As they start reallocating resources, that's when we start seeing a lot of those infections come in and things like that. And so the plant's struggling to fight off everything. So by having the plant health products out there and really helping get an early application, prevent disease from even coming in, it's going to be beneficial at the end of the day.
So when we're in the vegetative state, were that plant still more active to keep the diseases away, correct? Can we say that's healthier, it's able to fight
Yeah.
better, its immune system's up higher?
Yeah.
Okay, so now when we go to the reproductive
Right.
and it's focusing on ear fill,
Yes.
how, you know, so it's allocating all of its attention to ear fill, and now it's more open to
Yeah,
getting-
so it's kind of like as it starts pumping in all the resources, it leaves a little bit more of the rest of the plant slightly vulnerable. And so we start seeing a lot of diseases come in. So having a fungicide plant health application is just a little extra precautionary to help that plant continue to fight off while it's still allocating those resources.
Like for me though, what we have learned here, that 30 to 60 bushels of corn can be made in test weight alone.
Yeah.
So if I'm having these late season diseases come in and leaving it open, I mean, it's such a huge swing. And that's what I'm concerned about now that I'm seeing more and more of this. You know, yes, it's not early. I've heard horror stories from guys up in northern Ohio and Michigan last year. But this is what we're having here. So I don't want to complain about it because they're probably watching us laughing, going, you should have walked my field like in August.
Right, yeah.
So
no, it can definitely have some huge yield impacts. Like I said, when we see the disease come in, kind of that R5, R6, it is less impactful on the yield, but not, it's, in my opinion, if you're really pushing and you're really trying to get those high yields, it might still have, you know, enough of an impact for you to notice and not be okay with it. And so again, that's where the 2-pass programs kind of come in handy, because when we think about disease and disease development, it's very opposite to weed control, right? So with weed control, you see a weed, you spray the weed dies, we're all happy, we know it worked. A lot of times with fungicides, we have to be proactive instead of reactive, because we don't ever want to see a lesion. Because when we see a lesion, that is tissue we're never going to get back. So that's tissue that can't photosynthesize anymore. It can't pump anything into yields, regardless of where it is on the plant. And we definitely want to protect the upper part of the plant, because that's where a lot of our resources are coming from for that grain fill. But if we start seeing lesions and then make that decision to spray, we're already behind the 8 ball. You know, it's not going to work very well. That's stuff we're never going to get back. Now we can prevent things from continuing to develop, but once it's there, it's not going to go away. So having, you know, a very early application timing. So you went at R1, you didn't have any disease at the time, that's great. And all of the fungicides, you know, especially Veltima, has a really long lasting residual, but at the same time, nothing lasts forever. And so having a second pass, even as late as R4, and layering and helping to protect the top of the plant can have some benefit there.
do we know, is it going to work from the top down? Is it working from the bottom up?
It can actually
So when I'm scouting a field, where should I be looking at? Top of canopy, middle, or below, or everywhere?
The interesting thing is, now that you know you've had it in this field, when I start scouting early, I would start scouting from the bottom.
Okay.
Because it's been in the field before, we know it can come in then. But at the same time,
so the lesions are going to start down on the
you
lower
can,
leaves then.
but at the same time, because we know those spores can go airborne, you gotta look at top too. So we don't typically see them start in the middle. We can see them start in the bottom of the leaf or bottom of the plant. We can see them at the top of the plant. So I always say, you know, you gotta look high and low. Don't look in your eye line. You gotta look for it in other areas.
Well, you bring up a good point, because a lot of cornfields I've been harvesting this year, I see it only on this top half. So does that mean
you're
it
a lot
probably
taller than me.
Does that mean it probably blew in
most
then?
likely, especially if you're not finding
Because
them.
I will get out and look at the other canopy and I'm not seeing it on the lower canopy. It's always like that top 2 foot of the leaves. I can see it.
Yeah, no, that most likely blew in from a neighboring
So I
area.
need to call my neighbors?
I mean, it might have a stern talking.
Okay.
But yeah, so it can do both. And my recommendation is, if it's early in the season, I always tell guys, you know, maybe look a little low, because we know it's here and it's present. If you've never had it in your fields, you know, high is probably the way to go, but I always say don't look in the middle. You're just wasting your time there. So look high, look low is what I always recommend.
Okay.
Essentially, once you have the pathogen, it's very prolific, it produces very fast, so it can take over the whole leaf very quickly. But what it actually does is produces a toxin that basically hurts the plant. And because it's so fast-paced, it causes the plant to be able to fight it off, essentially. And then so at the end of the day, it just kills the plant before it can naturally senesce.
It shuts down the plant, and
Yeah.
the reason why we're so concerned with it coming in early is because how many times have you guys walked a field, pulled an ear, threw it in the bed of your truck, all right, you're happy with it, you come back a week later, you look in the bed of the truck, and the only thing it looks like is a cob.
Yeah.
You're thinking, where'd all the kernels go? That's what tar spot does out in the field. It kills the plant so fast. It's that
It can't.
throwing the ear in the bed of the truck effect. You come back out here, and if it's too early in that corn life stage, it won't have hard kernels like this. It'll be gone, shriveled up to nothing. And that's where you're hearing horror stories of tar spot, of how they're having 30, 40 bushel corn when they thought they was having 200 plus bushel corn.
Yeah.
That's the fear. That's my biggest fear of it. I mean, we're sitting here complaining that it came in late
Right.
because I wanted another 10 bushels.
Yeah. And it can rob all your bushels.
Yes, so that's why this is such a serious disease that
Yeah.
Farmers, we need to be taking a look at, trying to find out best practices, best products, and I'm very happy with the way that the Veltima fungicide headline AMP we've always used before. You just look through here and the plant health aspect of it, like you said, I want to be healthy going into flu season. If I'm already sick going into flu season,
It's not good.
I'm probably going to get sick. Same way for my plant.
Yes.
I need it as healthy as it can be when it's going into the reproductive stage, and I want it to be healthy I want it to die a natural death.
No, that's a great way to think about it.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned plant health benefits that it has, and with Veltima and headline AMP, the disease control is just one of 3 pillars of yield that we kind of talk about with fungicides. You have your disease control, but also growth efficiency, talking about photosynthesis earlier, stress mitigation, talking about a stressed out plant is going to be more vulnerable. So having all 3 of those pillars of yield, I think, is really important.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah. I mean, with all this exciting talk, about what we're seeing here, and what, do you guys see anything coming down the pipeline new?
So we have a lot of really exciting things coming, and I can't wait to start sharing those with you, with other customers. But I want to say our pipeline, we have 25 new products coming by 2025.
25 new products.
Yeah, we're pretty pumped.
Like,
So
2025 is only like 2 years
2
and
years
a month away. I mean,
yeah, it's really close. We have a lot of exciting things coming. I've been with BASF for 6 years now, and this is the most exciting pipeline time we've ever had, in my opinion.
well, as a farmer, I'm pretty excited for that news. So, yeah, everybody watching, make sure you tune in and keep following BASF and find out what's coming down the pipeline, because 25 products, that's a lot.
Yes, yes it is.
All right, well, I appreciate you guys' time today, and thank you as always, and thank you for helping me through another successful harvest. I'm very happy with the way the crops turned out, and hopefully we can put one in the wind for the state of Ohio. I appreciate it. Thank you guys.
Thanks, Cory.
Thank you.